Hello, my name is Opal Singleton. Welcome to Protect and Prevent. This podcast is brought to you by millionkids.org. Millionkids.org. We're an organization out of Southern California. We've been in business over 15 years. We've trained well over 1 million people now, all about online exploitation and also things like combating things like sex trafficking. Today, I want to talk to you about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the word capacity. And I share this with you because we deal with real cases. We take leads and we do referrals and we do intervention and that kind of thing. And especially with online exploitation of children. And I always think it comes down to a child's capacity to understand the world that we are putting them in. So parents often ask me, how old should a child be before they're allowed to be online on the World Wide Web? Well, I often reply, how mature is your child? How good are they at cognitive reasoning? How open are they with you if they make a mistake? Okay. And how much do you think they understand that you have decided to put them on a World Wide Web that has more than 5.5 billion people on it? And a percentage of them are pedophiles. Some of them are terrorist groups, some of them are extremist groups, and some of them are just outright pedophiles. Now, you're going to think that I'm a curmudgeon, that I think kids don't belong online and, that technology's terrible. I am not like that at all. Anybody who knows me knows that I think we live at the most important time in all of history. And it is a tremendous call to leadership. And that call to leadership includes teaching our children to live on the World Wide Web without them being exploited, without it changing their thinking completely. And this really comes down to capacity. And I really think at the heart of the matter is for parents, first of all, before they ever consider putting a child online, that they understand what they're doing, that they understand the world they're about to put their child in. Now, I think the great call to leadership is teaching our children to live in a world of advanced technology in a way that is helpful, in a way that is going to help them be better people, and in a way that's going to give them access to more information, more education than any generation before them. But they are also going into an environment that contains 5.5 billion people. And with that in mind, how able, let's say, how much capacity does your child have for cognitive reasoning, for understanding the world we live in? You see, I believe that parents have to put the wagging finger away and start to sit down and discuss with kids what is about to happen. Because this generation of young people is the first generation in all of history that will literally be online with more than 5.5 billion people. So I think, I look back, it's a lot like that generation that got the first cars. And it is exciting, but it was scary. And there were a lot of things that went wrong where we lost a lot of very fine young people because they didn't know how to slow down. They didn't know how to deal with the dangers there. Or maybe they thought they should try out a little drinking and driving. Well, it's about the same thing. Many people who follow me know my most common analogy is that technology's a lot like a car. You can take it off to a university and get a degree, or you can take that same car down to a strip club and get yourself in trouble. The problem with parents is that they don't yet understand that when they put their child online, that child has an opportunity to get tremendous education, tremendous opportunity. But they also have the opportunity to get into the proverbial strip club of technology, if you will. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to look at pornography, although sooner or later it's probably going to happen because young kids are exploring. They're interested, they're taking chances, and we all did it. But here's what I think is the key when it comes down to capacity. You know your child better than anybody. How mature are they with cognitive reasoning? For the ability to look at something and say, wow, this just might be something I need to ask somebody else about. This might be something that I need to ask more questions about. How willing are they to acknowledge red flags? By the way, I know some young children that are 80 years old that don't acknowledge red flags, okay? But you get the point. How willing are they to understand the world that you're putting them in? And along with it, how much do they understand, adult sexuality? The real danger with prepubescent kids is one, they usually don't have the capacity for strong cognitive reasoning. And two, they don't understand adult sexuality, so they won't recognize what a pedophile is. So here's what I think has to happen. I think that it's an important conversation. Now, let me clarify something first to you, to make myself clear to parents. Okay, I am not accepting or expressing the idea that you don't have filters, that you don't check a child's phone, that you don't set up parameters, and that you don't have the conversations that are also necessary. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting just to the contrary. Before you make that cognitive decision to put your child online with 5 billion people, that you already have in your mind what you're going to do to protect them, because your child most likely does not yet have that capacity for cognitive reasoning. But think out how well you know your child. And so you do put all the parameters in there, but you have this discussion. It's a fascinating thing to me. We would never put a child out in the middle of the freeway and say, you be careful now. Okay. When we teach a child to go out in a road that has cars on it, we say, look both ways, follow the lights, take precaution, look out for your little brother and sister. Some people don't follow the rules. Some people are really dangerous. And we teach them that, and we should teach that to our children before they go online. In fact, one of the problems I contend is that most adults do not yet recognize what is happening when they go on the World Wide Web. I wrote a book a while back called Digital Warfare, Our Kids on the Front Line. I will warn you, it's a hard book to read. It is not ever meant to be a bestseller. It is a handbook for people that deal with kids and child sex crimes. And it talks about all the ways that this can go wrong and what to do about it. But one of the thoughts behind that book, Digital Warfare, Our Kids on the Front Line, is that it talks about what it means to be in a globally connected world. You see, in 2022, something happened that we all recognize, but we don't recognize the impact, especially on our children and prepubescent children. And that is the entire world came together by global internet. But it happened at the same time that we had all these advanced technologies. Technology's changing at the speed of light. We have artificial intelligence. We have generative AI. We have deep fakes. Anybody in the world can use AI and find out everything about you and your children, by the way. And they can use that same AI to draw a profile of you and your child. So I always say, before you ever put a child online, you and your child should sit down and see what everybody can tell about you. And this is important because now criminals all over the world have AI and they can reach your child in a global connection. So they are going to look like a friend of a friend to your child. If your child's 9 years old, they do not have the capacity to know if that's going to be a good friend or a bad friend. And we need to talk about relationships online. Right now, it is believed that as many as 50% of kids make their relationships online. We have to start to talk about what are the cognitive indicators that this might be a bad guy. Are they sending you images? Are they sending you sexual images? Are they wanting to be friends way too quickly? Are they implying they already know you and so therefore it's okay for you to share images? By the way, for teenagers, that's a very important conversation. Kids need to understand today that a nude online or even something that is a partial nude can very quickly be made into a deep fake and that they can very quickly be violated or exploited or blackmailed. That same conversation with an older child, I'm talking 13, 14, 15, 16, needs to be if someone's trying to blackmail you or someone's trying to tell you that they know you and now they're doing illicit images, that is a huge red flag. And hopefully your child has enough capacity in their thinking to recognize to run, baby, run. Get the heck out of there. Do not participate. Anybody can look like they know you. The same people that are out there are using all kinds of altering images and voices. That is so important for prepubescent children. And, will your 9-year-old recognize when someone is trying to groom them? So, the decision to allow your child online in the World Wide Web requires preparation. If you have a spouse in the house, I think it requires agreement and not rebellion because this can be very serious. And what will happen is your child needs to know that you believe in them, that you trust them, but that you're going to have an open dialogue. If you're having a war between you and your spouse on whether your child should be online, you're automatically setting your child up for failure because they're not going to come and tell you or somebody else if they're in trouble because they don't want to get trouble going in the marriage. That is their fault. So you need an understanding of the world that you're putting your child in. You need an agreement between you and the other members of the household. And by the way, that includes older children on there because younger children will watch what is happening. So one of the discussions is who is on the World Wide Web with you? This is very, very important, especially if you decide to put your child, a prepubescent child, or a child that does not have adult capacity, even if they're a little bit older, if you decide to put them online. Let me explain why. Because now pedophiles can know everything about your child. They can go on Zillow and see pictures of your house. They can go on Facebook and look at all those photos you post of your young children. Stop it, okay? That puts them in danger. They can gather up all kinds of information and they will go after the most successful kids because they have the most information in it. They can tell if your child is playing on a little kid's game. In fact, they will go on to Instagram accounts like hashtag hot cam girls or hashtag itty bitty bikini, or those ones that indicate the kids are younger. And they will go on the little kids' games. The problem with that, they will also go on little kids' chat bots. And the problem with that is that they can many of these games, let me back up a minute and form a whole sentence so it makes sense to you. Many of these little kids games, including a game like Roblox were the games created by the developers of pretty good games, and it teaches kids to play in technology in ways they need to understand. But here's the problem. Only about 1 out of 8 games is created by a Roblox developer that meets their standards. The rest is created by anybody and everybody out there using open source AI. If you don't know what open source AI is, I recommend that you Google it or chat GTB it or perplexity it. Okay. Hard to say, okay? But I recommend you understand what I'm saying. Anybody can go into open source AI and become a game developer. Open source AI is like going to the store and buying the parts of games that developers use to create games. Now, some of those people do it to be able to give good education videos and games to kids. But some of them are pedophiles and they go online, and you, mom and dad, will go on to the main games and you go, okay, this is okay. As long as you're on Roblox, I'll keep an eye on you. But, the bulk of the games that are out there, your child knows how to switch games. Your child, I'm going to tell you right now, is smarter than you when it comes to technology. And they will flip over to the other games. And here's how it works. Pedophiles will go on and they will detect that they're talking to a very young kid. So they will send them funny videos of little kids playing sex games. Now, we all did it, okay? 6, 7, 8 years old. We all told the dirty jokes and we all giggled and we all grew up and somehow we survived it. But it is different now online. Because what will happen is these guys will determine it's a young kid and they will send them a video of young kids playing sex games, and everybody giggles, including your child. It is a natural reaction. But if your child does not have the capacity to understand that that is not appropriate, your child's a sitting duck, especially if you're not on there with them all the time. That is because unless you sit down in advance and define what you are deciding to do when you put your child online, that you're putting them online with 5.5 billion people. And some of them are bad guys, but they won't look like bad guys. And so the next question is, how's your child's cognitive reasoning? How is their capacity to understand that something might not be right and come to you and go, Mommy, this kind of looks funny to me. What do you think? And you need that kind of relationship that they can come online with you and show it to you without you wagging your finger and jumping up and down and screaming and yelling, going, get off, what have you done? I'm going to take this away from you. That, although we need parameters, we need filters, there are places for that. But we also have to create an environment, especially if we're putting young children online, which I don't recommend. You're going to learn that from me real quick, because they don't have the capacity to understand when they're in trouble. But if for whatever, by the way, there are lots of devices out there. Bark is one of them. I can't think of Cyber Drive, I think is one of them. That is great for young kids that can learn technology without putting them on the World Wide Web. But if you're in a situation where they're going to go on there, what you need to analyze is, what do you know about your child? What is their capacity to have good judgment if they're in trouble? Because they will get those video games. They will get those videos sent to them where everybody laughs and the kid wants to play the game back. And what will happen is that you may not realize it, but your child is very good at making a quick video and sending it right back to them. And that's exactly how pedophiles work with prepubescent children. And they'll start to build a friendship. It is called grooming. And grooming is used online to build trust and a friendship with a child to get them to send those images that qualify as CSAM, child sexual abuse materials. Predators are trying to get little kids' images and build relationships so that they can share those images on the World Wide Web, mostly in the dark web or bulletproof hosting sites, where they share them with other pedophiles. That is how they interact with other pedophiles. And this is not a small thing. I want you to understand that 1.5 billion people, 5.5 billion people are now online. Do you know a couple of years ago, they discovered a child pornography ring that had 1.6 million pedophiles on it, tricking children into getting illicit photos, either illicit photos they could alter or illicit photos the kids sent without understanding what was happening. And those photos would go out to more than, in this case, 1.6 million pedophiles to be bought, sold, and traded in the dark web everywhere they go. And yes, they can be submitted to the Take It Down Act. Thank you, Melania Trump, for doing that. However, it's only if you keep the original that they sent. And most kids, when they get caught, delete it. So don't delete the images. If your child's caught up in this and has sent something, don't delete them. Don't share them with everybody. Screenshot them. Get your child away from the internet as fast as possible. Change everybody's user information and start to sit down and talk with your child. I hope your child doesn't end up in one of those situations, but I know better because I handle and see a lot of these cases. Now, I don't investigate them myself. I'm not a law enforcement officer. I get them over to how to report. But did you know that right now, more than 77,000 reports are being reported a day of online child exploitation? 77,000 a day. So you'll panic, you'll go to the police department, and you should, okay, because maybe they can connect it to another case. But don't think for a second they're going to stop and investigate everything of your case, because at 77,000 reports a day, there is no law enforcement agency in the world big enough to take this on. So that is why I'm having this discussion with you today, Mom and Dad, about capacity. Before you put your child online, you need to be able to know that your child has the capacity to recognize when they're in trouble and ask for help and not ever return anything that's illicit. I was chuckling to myself today when I was writing this because not only should this happen with your children, but maybe with grandma and grandpa also, because romance scans of the senior population is now over $105 billion a year. So maybe you ought to have the capacity discussion with your senior citizens in your life. One of the things I would encourage you to do is buy the book Digital Warfare: Our Kids on the Front Line. It's a hard read, I know. You can get it at Million Kids for $5 and listen to me read it to you. Or for $15 at Amazon, you can get the paperback. Or I think it's on Kindle for, I don't know, 5, 6, $7, something like that. You can afford it. It is, your child is worth it. Educate yourself all the ways this can go wrong so that you can teach your child how to have the capacity to recognize when they're in trouble. That is really what this is all about. Sooner or later, every one of us is going to be subjected to somebody who is a bad guy online. It happens. I see it regularly. I do believe that we are the most important leaders of all time because we have to teach our kids how to live in this globally connected world with billions of people, and millions of them are not good people. You know, I remember a case I had once where a mother had allowed her daughter to become an influencer, and she was a great kid and a great mother. I'm not putting the mother down in any way. But then I found out the mother was only, or excuse me, that the daughter was only 11 years old. So it occurred to me, and I've been using this ever since with people, especially kids in school. If you're online and you have 1 million followers, which, by the way, Mom and Dad, that's nothing if you're an influencer. But if you're online and have 1 million followers, what percentage of them are bad guys, are pedophiles? I mean, let's think about it. There's 5.5 billion people online with their child and growing every day. The world is only 70% connected. This is why it is so important for us to teach our child what it means to live in a globally connected world. If you have 1 million followers, what percentage of them are pedophiles that want to violate your child? Have you ever thought about that? Has your child ever thought about that? And they need to understand that if they're on Instagram and Snapchat or TikTok, they can literally go online and find all your followers, unless of course you make them private. And I highly recommend you make them private. But think about that. That will look like they're a friend of a friend. So you can no longer use that criteria. They will look like they know you very, very well. That's because they've used artificial intelligence to build a profile of you. I think before any child goes online, and even if they're online right now, that you and your family should sit down and go on a scavenger hunt of the Google of everything on the internet, of LinkedIn, of Zillow, of everything that's out there, and find out what other people know. So that when you sit down with your child, you can say, I am trusting you, and the biggest trust a parent could ever have in a child, because I am putting you in an environment with millions, literally billions of other people, and a lot of them, some of them are bad guys. I always say, if you're going to put your 6 or 7-year-old on the World Wide Web, take them down to the local strip club first and leave them alone for 10 minutes and see how they hold up. I am kidding, okay? I am not recommending that you do that. That is a joke, but it's not really too funny. What I am saying is some of the people your child is going to encounter are like those people. And so before we put our kids online, they have to have the capacity to understand the world they're living in, and the capacity to understand when someone is approaching them that might be in danger. Now, one of the things I recommend is that we put the wagging finger away and say, let's talk about each of these. If you see something out there, I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to take everything away from you. Let's be open and honest. I may not be able to tell myself. This thing has reached a level that literally your grandparents are sending money to people you don't know because they're lonely and they think they've found their new love. We're counting on parents to have the cognitive reasoning and to download that cognitive reasoning and that capacity to their child. So we talk about the world we're about to put them in, but then we also say, anytime you get a connection from someone you don't know, let's look at it. Let's analyze it. We won't know every time. And your child's going to make mistakes, by the way, so are you, mom and dad. And especially if you're on one of those dating sites, I often recommend that you and your child have a contract between you before you ever go online. The first part of that contract is that you each get a code word between you, and so that if you, and I often say that if your friends have close friends online, they get a code word between them, because everybody's going to look like a friend of a friend. And everybody's going to, especially predators, are going to look like people who know you, because it is easy to do that now with artificial intelligence. So the first thing you do is you get a code word and you use it between you. And by the way, that includes grandma and grandpa, because there are grandparent scams. So get a code word. Number 2, as part of this signed contract between parent and child, and I don't care if they're 17 years old and 6 foot tall, I recommend this contract. Number 2, they will never knowingly do anything that will bring harm to them or their family. And this is really, really important. And by the way, this is really important for the older teenagers, because they need the capacity to understand that they are on the World Wide Web, and they have a World Wide Web digital reputation that will be with them forever. And their digital morality and their digital empathy will form a digital profile of that person for the rest of their life. This is the first generation that's on the World Wide Web. So part of that contract, number two, is they will never knowingly put something online that will compromise themselves or compromise their family. Number three, they will never, ever, ever, never, ever go out and meet up with someone they met online. That is so important. Kids just get curious about people they meet and they sneak out, and it is a tragedy. And number four, the most important one, is that we're entering a world that doesn't have any precedence to it, okay? And that they will come to you and the two of you can talk it out. This is how you teach your child to recognize when they may be in danger, because they're not going to know by instinct and immediately that this could be wrong. And you may not know either. And this is going to get more and more complicated because of AI. So that if they're in doubt, if something has happened that is unusual, they come to you and you all talk it out. And that way, everybody learns together. And I highly recommend, if it's a younger child and you have older children, that all of you in the family look at it and say, wow, look at this. Who could this be? I recommend that you train yourself, mom and dad, how this all works. And that's what the book Digital Warfare, Our Kids on the Front Line, is all about. Digital warfare. It's at mainkids.org. It says Amazon. I hope you'll consider buying it. What I really want you to do today with the idea of talking about the word capacity is to think out how well you know your child. How likely are they going to be to respond appropriately when they're in trouble? And even if they don't respond appropriately, be willing to come and ask for help if they made mistakes. And it means building a confidence between you. And the way you do that is to not scream and yell. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you don't react. If you see something scary or very dangerous, there are reporting places all over the place that you can go to and report. I'm going to give one to you right now. The FBI reporting number is 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-THE-LOST. The letters or numbers for that are 1-800-843-5678. 1-800-843-5678. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get immediate action because they have millions of reports also. But it is important to report. If you see your child in trouble, don't delete the images, screenshot them, don't show them to other people, stop, block, do not alert the predator, do not alert them, okay? That's too dangerous. Screenshot it and then shut everything down. Do not accept any new friends or new communication from people you don't know. They just change your name and come back around after a block. But take the device and your young person and take them down to the cyber crimes unit of law enforcement or call 1-800-THE-LOST, the FBI number. Here's my point. This is a whole new world. This is not a scream, yell, thou shalt not moment. This is a moment of conversation and understanding. This is a moment of building trust between you and your child, that your child will have the capacity to analyze what is happening and come to you, and then you can learn from it and you can share them. And it is by that experience we're going to learn how to protect children. We've never been here before. I have things happen to me, even though I'm supposedly the expert, and I'll say, this looks fishy to me, and it's my gut instinct. But that after years of working, I've worked in child exploitation crimes for 15 years. You and your child don't have that ability to do that, but you do have the ability to learn together. And it is such an important mission. I believe it is the greatest call to missions of all time, and that includes Christian leadership. This ought to be going on in every youth group in America. Every pastor ought to consider taking this on. Every adult Bible study ought to take this on so that we can prepare this generation to use technology in a way that glorifies God's and honors each other. But we also teach each other the skills to analyze when a young person is in trouble. It is hard enough when you're an adult with all your capacities and you understand adult sexuality. But imagine if you're 9 years old and you're trying to get a child to have that kind of adult capacity when in fact they're just not old enough yet to have the mental acuity, the mental knowledge, that gut instinct yet. And so we need to hold them by the hand and walk with them on it. And that means you are deeply involved with them. I do not recommend putting children that are prepubescent on the World Wide Web. There are other alternatives. They don't have that capacity. But as their capacity grows, it is up to you and I to take them by the hand and teach them what they know. It is not enough to wag the finger or say, you be careful on that thing now. This is a call to leadership, mom and dad. Please educate yourself. Follow Me and Kids at meandkids.org. You can write to me at Opal, O-P-A-L, O-P-A-L. What a strange name. Anyway, OPAL at millionkids.org. Join us, follow us, buy the book, get involved, become a leader. We need each and every one of you to understand this, to protect our precious children. This is Opal Singleton at millionkids.org. We'll see you on the next podcast.